That's a dangerous thing, Randy, handing me the floor. Good day, everyone. Welcome. I'm so pleased you're here. Here's where we're going today. We've got a few things to cover. We're going to talk a little bit about the industry, what we call the 5 C's of modern accounting. We're going to talk a lot during the session about value-added services you can provide to clients, the importance of automation. I've buried in here some of my best practice tips for you because I used to do this with our firm in Salt Lake City. I started with Deloitte, then I went to a small firm for 12, 13 years, as Randy mentioned, and we were big on technology, even way back in the day. We sold a lot of Sima, a lot of Great Plains, a lot of QuickBooks back in the day, Peachtree, state of the art. There was many different things we were involved in. So there's a lot I learned from those years of helping clients automate accounting, essentially automate bookkeeping, accounting, and whatnot. And our goal in that, I need to give my one partner some credit here. Back when I was with the firm, and I'm still very close friends with this firm, but back when I was with the firm, my one partner saw the vision. He said, Val, what we want is we want the clients to be able to do all the scorekeeping, and we want to be able to do all the analysis later and help them with their company and their direction. But we don't want them paying bills to us to be doing all the scorekeeping. For our firm, that was the right fit. Now, I know that many of you actually have clients that want you to do the scorekeeping. That's fine. That's great. You know, what you do, the whole goal of all this is to do what your clients need you to do. That's what you want to do. So anyway, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A and a little demo with Zoho Practice, and then we're going to kind of finish up. Along the way, somewhere, I hope you find some value. So let me walk you through what I'm saying. Back when I joined the industry, came out of Utah State University in northern Utah. I was fortunate enough to pass the CPA exam while still studying for my master's degree, which was a great thing to do, to get that out of the way. That's kind of a real nasty quiz. And during that time frame, it really was mainframes and minis. But while I was in college, microcomputers started to become of age. In fact, my wife to this day, I think, has probably forgiven me, but I took out a student loan and bought a microcomputer. That's what they were called back then. It was a DEC Rainbow computer. Its operating system was the predecessor to DOS. It was CP/M. And I'll tell you, if you thought DOS was quirky, wow, CP/M was terrible. So we went from DOS to Windows, and Windows really is a great OS. I would say probably the only OS that's better, and I'm a little biased, is Apple. I'm a big Apple fan. I have been an Apple fan since the late 80s. So I've seen a lot. Along came networks. And actually, when I went to work for Deloitte, this was really growing. Sadly enough, I went to the top consulting partner at Deloitte, and I said, I see a vision. I see a vision where we can make a lot of money helping clients automate their systems with these networks and microcomputers. And I will give you his exact answer. He thought about it for a minute and said to me, he said, Val, we see the future as all big iron. Big iron refers to mainframe and minis. So they had no vision of this. Sadly, Deloitte's a very aggressive and great technology firm. I think I was just in the wrong office. We could have literally beaten Andersen Consulting to that whole game if he had listened to me back then. And by the way, if you know about Andersen and Andersen Consulting, it was not their consulting division that brought down Andersen. It was the audit division. So really, where I was trying to take Deloitte was a great thing. Along then came remote access. Remote access, and companies were trying to run apps in a remote fashion. They were trying to build apps in a remote fashion. That was a very unpleasant, ugly time frame for all of us. If you were around back then, you remember that the gaboing, gaboing noise on your computer meant that you had a little better connection than normal. Wow, we've come so far since then. Now where we live is this SaaS, software as a service, or cloud-based software. The first gen of that, by the way, the first gen was nothing more than desktop apps ported to the cloud. And they did not work very well at all. So they went back to the drawing board, said, well, let's clean these up a little bit. Once again, the vast majority of companies simply took desktop apps, rewrote them a little bit, made them cleaner, made them a little faster, and put them back in the cloud. What I'm here to talk to you about today, though, is Gen 3. Software completely created for the cloud, in the cloud, running in the cloud, optimized for the cloud, and crafted to run and serve your needs. I'll give you one comment about a competitor. In my prior business, I was an 8-year survivor, okay, of Salesforce, an 8-year survivor of using that product until my prior company, one of the reasons I'm with Zoho now, we switched to Zoho CRM, and I was stunned at the difference. So, you know, there is a significant difference in software crafted for the cloud and software that is not. Now, let's talk to you about the industry in general. Just for grins and giggles, and I can't see hands and I won't see questions till probably the end, but I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with this person right in the middle of the screen there. Doug Burgum. He was actually running for president of the United States earlier this year. I've known Doug going way back. Doug, his claim to fame, Doug was actually the president and owner and CEO of Great Plains Software. Now, many of you will know Great Plains Software. Even today, you still have people that'll put their hand over their heart and go, oh, that was such a great time for the accounting industry. It was. What Doug had going and what Great Plains had going was a really good solution. Sadly, Doug decided to sell that whole thing to Microsoft. As consultants to Doug, and we were very close consultants to Doug, we told him not to do that because we knew the end game. We knew what Microsoft would do with Great Plains. And they have pretty much done with Great Plains what we predicted they would do. And that is pretty much nothing. So I'm sorry about that. So why would I bring it up? Doug Burgum was the first person that really got me thinking differently. I was at dinner with Doug one night, and he had 2 questions for me that really threw me off guard. I mean, he and I had gone back and forth for years. As a consultant of Great Plains, we'd spent a lot of time with Great Plains. This was not the first dinner I'd ever had with Doug Burgum. It just so happened one night he was really in a kind of a prophetic, forward-thinking mode. And his first question, here was his first question. He said, Val, when are accountants going to give up their spreadsheets and use my beautiful software, which really calculates pretty much everything they need to do? And I kind of put my fork down and kind of looked at him like, really? Because the answer to that is from my dead and dying hands, because spreadsheets are what we use for everything that we can't get out of accounting systems. It's our checker, it's our check all, our fix all, our whatever. That ain't going to change, Doug. That's going down the road. All right, so that's question 1. Question 2, Val, when are accountants going to start looking more forward instead of through the rearview mirror? And I once again was a little disappointed in the question because my response to Doug was, well, Doug, you know, your beautiful Great Plains software, and by the way, it was very good accounting software, folks. Your beautiful Great Plains software is historical looking with every report. So it's looking in the review mirror for every report. And he looked at me and he said, you know, you're right. And I said, I know I'm right. I said, Doug, what you need to do is go out and buy a product like FRX Forecaster. That was a product that was in the market back then. And I said, that product looks forward. It's a forecasting tool. It's looking forward. It takes historical data and helps people look forward. 2 months later, Great Plains actually owned FRX Forecaster. True story. Okay, that was a good thing I did with a bad result. Let me explain. Because Great Plains bought FRX Forecaster, it got caught up in the Microsoft buyout, and Microsoft has since killed the product. Sad, kind of really sad. So, what are we talking about today? The role of the traditional accountant is mainly compliance. The role of the digital accountant is looking forward, is handling all kinds of complex questions that the clients need to know and handling it much faster, much quicker, more well-connected without wasting as much time heads down on compliance issues, input issues, analysis issues. And there are a ton of fabulous tools to help you do that. We kind of see it as the 6 C's of the modern accounting platform. Consistency really speaks to, folks, your relationship with your accounting solution provider. How consistent is that provider with providing you with premium accounting software at a consistent price that keeps, it's something where you can plan on next year? Or are you using software that every year they're jacking up the price on you? All right. That's not cool. That's not where we are. Also, is the product more customer centric? Are they focused on your clients? Are they focused on making things better, adding features which really improve the product or not? Is it really well connected? Does it have a lot of other apps that are connected to it? Does it allow customization? Can you literally at times take an advanced tool and go in where needed? I had a number of very complex clients where we really needed this capability, and at times we could do it, and at times we couldn't. Literally go in and modify the solution to fit a specific needs. Often that's in receivables and sometimes also in payables. You'll see that. Does it have a consumer-friendly UI? What does that mean? Can people pick up any device, a phone, a tablet, a desktop, a laptop, a large screen, multiple screens, pick up whatever device they have and get access to the solution and find useful information? One of the things that drove me nuts with Salesforce was trying to get information off my phone. I pretty much gave up. It was pretty useless for me in that with my prior company. And last of all, does it meet compliance? Does it meet government standards, other standards? Does it help you meet those compliance needs? So as we see it today, there's 2 ways to go. For many years, there was really only one way to go, and that was best of breed. As accountants, you went out there and you found the best of breed, and then you did your doggone best to connect them. In today's environment, what we're bringing to you today is best of suite. We have an entire suite of integrated solutions. Why is that a better way? Integrations, when you have to build them, and I've done tons of these, are complex, and the cost is not small. I think the number I have in front of you now is actually a low number. It's a strong number. In other words, I'm very confident that anytime you go to build an integration, you're going to spend 6 times as much money. Your clients will spend 6 times as much money on the integration as they spend on licensing the softwares they're trying to integrate. This is a very common number in the industry. If anything, it's a bit low. Also, these integrations can be a bit gnarly. Okay. When you start integrating stuff, it's like my spinning animation there. When stuff goes wrong, you don't know where to go. You don't know where to look. In fact, in most cases, it turns into this finger pointing game and headaches. That's not a fun place to be. So what's better? The suite approach, which we'll talk you through today. What does that do for you? It speeds up everything. It speeds up payments, and it speeds up payment and payments, AR and AP, both sides of that coin. It helps reduce manual errors because everything's connected by people that know what they're doing. It improves forecasting because you don't have the possibility of bringing in the wrong data. Now, I hesitate there just a little bit because I don't care what product you're doing. When you get into forecasting, you still can get what we call garbage in, garbage out. You've got to be careful what you bring in, even in an integrated suite. So let me qualify that one a little bit. You really do need to make sure you know what you're bringing in, bringing the right stuff into a forecast. It also does reduce costs significantly. And when I say significantly, I mean significantly, folks. So how can you add value to your practice with all these different things could you do? What could you possibly do that's going to help you and your practice and your clients and others step forward in this particular arena? Well, I've got some tips here. I've got some tips, and I've also got a few slides about Zoho as well we're going to cover. And then, like I say, we're headed for that demonstration. Number one, let me talk you through this. The needs analysis. I was at a conference. This was about 2 years ago and change, maybe 2 years and some months ago. And this was not a small group, folks. This was a high-end, enterprise level technology provider, accounting firm group. I'm sure some of you would know the group if I mentioned it, but I was at one of their big conferences, and I was in a CAS session where they were all talking about client accounting services or client advisory services, however you see that acronym playing out. And what I was watching and listening to in the session, and I let it go for about 45 minutes. And all I heard in this room as they were talking about what they were doing with their CAS practice was how they were taking software that they knew. So if we know QuickBooks, this is how we're selling that to clients and modifying it to fit in these particular industries. In other words, what I heard more of in there, I was kind of disgusted about. I heard more of how to take a square peg and jam it into a round hole than I did them actually meeting the client's needs. So at one point I raised my hand and I said, look, I'm sorry, I've been in this game a lot of years. What I hear a lot in this room is taking a square peg and jamming it into a round hole. What you need to do first, you must do a needs analysis with the client. You must sit down and look at what the client needs, what they want, and what are their wishful items. And you've got to make darn sure the solution you pick for your client has everything they need, most of what they want, and some of their wishful items. If it doesn't, you've got the wrong solution. And don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. Honestly, I don't think it went over very well. Too many of these people were set in their ways, jamming the solution that they were familiar with down their client's throat. That's not a good approach. Promise you, you will have stuff go wrong. In the entire years that I did a lot of this with our clients, I had one deal, one bad deal, and that's all it takes, folks. I had one bad deal that I still regret to this day. I had one person on my team that oversold the product, and I still remember the whole deal to this day. Okay. You need to make sure what you're promoting to your client fits their needs, the vast majority of their wants, and a few of their wishful items. Now, if what you know doesn't do that, here's how you can do that a little better. Partner. If you don't know the solution, competitor down the street knows the solution, consider partnering. Now, when you consider partnering, you'd better do some fact checking and checking with referrals and making sure that these people know what they're doing. You can trust them to step in on your clients. You can trust them to work with your clients. But partnering can be fantastic. If you're not comfortable with that, okay, then you walk away from the deal. Don't be the implementer. Let it go to somebody else. You can still keep the client for other reasons, but just be aware of that. The worst thing to do is get one of your precious clients involved in a bad deal. You will lose the client, okay? You will lose them. Master cash flow projections. If you're not good at this, it's time to learn. There is no better way, there is absolutely no better way to win the heart of a manager of any business of any kind than a cash flow projection. Now, many of the products that are out there on the market today have built into them simple cash flow projection tools. You could take that from their historical data, and you could take that and you could then predict from that. Okay, you could use that as a basis to predict from. Where would you go from there? Honestly, I would go back to your spreadsheet and make some guesses. Now, don't waste time on guesses more than a couple years out. Years ago, when we used to do this, late 80s, 90s, and into 2000s, we were doing 5-year projections. That all changed about 2000. It went down to 3-year projections. To be honest with you, I would say the current industry now, next year in detail, and then a year after that, giving you a 2-year projection would be the top ticket right now. 2-year projection. And look, set the expectations correctly. Just tell your client, I'm making my best guess at this based on all the input from you and the accounting data that I see. Here is what I see happening. Be sure to ask them, are you planning any large cash disbursements, purchases, other things, or big sales coming in next year that I'm not aware of? One of my clients that threw me for a fit was actually a dentist client, and he allowed his wife, of all things, to come into the business and just write herself a check on a random basis. These were not small checks. And so I was still trying to give him an idea where cash flow was when cash would disappear on me all the time with checks just going out all the time. So I had to have a little talk with him and say, look, I know you want to allow your wife to do this. Let's let her do this. Let's kind of plan and have at least kind of a budget each month of how much she thinks she wants to come in and take and how much you kind of want to let happen. Let me just say this, he wasn't hurting for cash. I was still just trying to give him an idea where things were, even with his wife, coming in writing checks and stuff. So you can adjust to almost any crazy situation. And that's what I'd say you're doing. Talk to your clients and say, look, I'm going to predict this, but we're going to have to adjust this as best we can as we're going along. Item 4, there are very savvy business people out there that don't know how to read numbers. I call them numbers blind. Some of these people can be very successful in business. Give you an example. We had my prior business, we did a lot of conferences and events for state CPA societies. We had a very big conference on the East Coast that for a number of years was terribly successful. We were in a property the attendees liked. We had great content. This conference was growing. And then the state society got in an argument with the property over numbers. It was clearly a cost number thing, whatever, and decided to move the conference. And I told the director of education that made that decision, I said, I don't know what the deal was with the costs, but we're going to lose in revenue on the high side of this, much bigger numbers than whatever your cost change was. And they didn't believe me. So I did an Excel spreadsheet, sent them back the numbers that I thought was going to be our loss the next year. And I was pretty much spot on. We went significantly down. Then they decided to stay there. And I said, no, go back to the place where we were real successful. No, we're going to stay. It's not going to be that bad. And I again sent them numbers. And then I realized my mistake. This person is numbers blind. All I did was a simple graph that showed, here's where the conference was growing. Here's where you decided to change property. Here's where it went down. And this is where we're going if you stay in that property, using all legitimate numbers and numbers I forecast. 2 weeks later, we were back in the right property. People need and like reports with graphics. If you're not doing much with graphics, learn how to add graphics to your clients' reports. I guarantee you'll get immediate feedback. On occasion, please sit down, review your clients, especially right now. Our industry is overwhelmed, to be honest with you. I don't know one accountant that I've talked to in the last 2 or 3 years that isn't just practice maxed out. Everybody's looking for staff. I don't have a lot of great news for you on staff, okay? A lot of young people are looking at our profession and at our area as a lot of work, not great pay. I've been trying to encourage a lot of the state societies and the AICPA to step up better, do a lot more things to help change that. I am not a fan of the 150-hour requirement for the CPA exam. I want them to drop it to the same rule they have for international accountants, which is 120 hours. And I'm not a popular person with the AICPA because I'm taking the stance. But let me just say this. You also need to look at your clients and look at where your time is being spent. Who is your top 10 clients and why are they your top 10 clients? It might not be revenue. It might be you just love working with those kind of people. Who is your bottom 10 and why are they your bottom 10? And consider firing the bottom ones. I know what I'm saying to many of you is heresy. I was there. When I learned this, I was sick. I couldn't imagine firing a client. With our little firm, that was the smartest thing we ever learned. We went out and fired a number of clients that were taking up unbelievable amounts of staff time, everyone's time. We were having to cut bills to these clients. They were complaining about us. The smartest thing we ever did was cut bad clients. In fact, one of our competitors from down the street called me a few weeks later after we cut one client loose and said, "Hey, Val, about time you cut those guys loose. They've been bad-mouthing you for years." That's not helping you. Folks, there are plenty of good businesses that want your attention and time. And I'll help you find them with my closing hint and tip here in a minute. Go through and weed these people. Get rid of the ones that are keeping you up at night, that are bothering you on personal time, that are not worth the money. There's plenty of work out there. Now, leverage your social media, your presence here, Alignable, your presence on these other sites. Some of these sites I'm not a huge fan of. I don't use Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, but other people are real big at it. I am very big on one site, that's LinkedIn, and I'm learning more now as I'm on Alignable. I'm learning how to use Alignable better. Okay? My big hint and tip here is if you have a site, if you have a website, if you have a presence, keep it current. If you let it go stale, it could not be cool. So actually, like with our Alignable site here, we're a little behind it. So I've recently hired someone that's going to help us keep our site more up to date and content ready and that as we go forward. You got to keep them current, but optimize it. If you're a member of Alignable, but not a member of LinkedIn, I'd get in both, seriously, and start building your presence, building your connections, building your content. That really helps in this space. Make sure you people know what they're doing. Our industry has a bad history of throwing people in the deep end of the pool and telling them to swim. Happened to me, happened to everybody else, happened to a lot of folks, okay? Don't do that. Sit them down and train them, teach them how to run the systems in your firm, the systems for their clients. Be very careful and walk them through everything they need to know along the way. Now, for me, I was fortunate, like at Deloitte, I had a couple of managers that were very patient and very good. And then in my little firm, when I went to my little firm for many years, those partners were just super. They were right in there with me. So I was very lucky. I had very good people around me. None of them, to be honest with you, did terrific training. So spend the time. I know you're terribly busy, but still spend the time. Train your staff. It comes back in spades when they know what they're doing. If you assign untrained people to clients' stuff, they're going to know it. It's like when you go down to the pharmacy or something and you get one of their new staff and you're like, oh no, this person doesn't know what they're doing. I've got to walk them through every step of just getting this prescription. It happens every now and then here at my local pharmacy. It drives me nuts. Okay. And kind of my closing recommendation to you, there is a way, and you need to do this correctly. My partners in my little firm went to a conference years ago. Back in the day, it was taught by a very famous person in the CPE industry. His name is Chris Fredrickson, and he used to do a big seminar nationwide about how to handle a multi-million dollar, how to make and manage a multi-million dollar CPA practice. His best trick of the entire conference was the one I'm about to teach you, and that's how to ask for referrals. And this is how you do it, folks. You don't go to your clients and do this used car salesman trick. Oh, give me the names and phone numbers of 5 of your friends and relatives that I can call them. That's the worst thing in the planet you can do. Also, you don't go to the clients that you don't like working with. Good people hang with good people. Annoying people hang with annoying people. Go to the clients you really, really like. And it's a simple request. If you like what we do, tell your friends. That's it. If you like what we do, tell your friends. You can't believe how well that works. It's huge. Okay, I think we're right up on questions, Randy.